What's up, boss? Walter here. So I really wanted to talk about this Andre the Giant documentary. I'm here with my cousin Alex.
How's it going, guys?
Back again to talk some wrestling. Putting a lot of wrestling videos up, actually, lately.
Yeah, you're finally fulfilling your promises from last year.
I know. This is the fourth one. There'll be more.
You didn't break that promise, folks. Always keep your promises.
Let's keep your promises if you want to keep your friends. So we're going to talk about the Andre the Giant documentary, just called Andre the Giant on HBO. Just watched it as soon as it went up on HBO Go. We checked it out, and I thought it was great, man. Really delved deep into the different layers of his personality and all the people who knew him. Really, really good production value on it too, and it felt different from a WWE documentary. It wasn't like a DVD release or something, which those are good too. I mean, a lot of those are really good, but this one just felt very different. It felt sort of like from an outsider's perspective, like it wasn't like inside the WWE bubble. So I thought that was pretty cool. What did you think of it overall?
Yeah, something definitely that you made a good point there was that it was definitely different from the usual WWE documentaries. Almost something similar to like how Wrestling with Shadows was the Bret Hart documentary all them years ago.
Right.
Overall, though, one word I could really depict this as: very, very sad.
Yeah, I think that's the overwhelming emotion that we're both feeling now after watching that. And they had some affecting scenes of interviews, especially with Tim White, the referee. You might know him from Lunchtime Suicide, but a weird a string of skits that Tim White was involved in. But he was Andre's traveling partner back in the day, and he knew him best out of anyone in the business and was really like his best friend. And he's just so emotional throughout everything that they talked about, especially when they talked about how he died and stuff, and he was alone in this hotel in France. I guess his father just passed away, so he was there for that, and he passed away of a heart attack, I think they said. So. And you see him talking about it, and he says no crying in wrestling, but he can't help himself. And then they show Vince right after that, and he's tearing up. Hogan didn't really tear up, but that's another story. Yeah, what do you think of Tim White's interviews and stuff?
Yeah, very emotional. Definitely very emotional. I did not know that they were that close. You said you knew that prior to. I didn't really dive much into his Andre the Giant's backgrounds, or even Tim White's in that case beforehand, and that really opened up a new perspective on everything for me.
Yeah, he really had some really cool stories about him. There's funny parts in it for sure. They have a whole 10-minute maybe 5 minutes of him just talking about his farts, which is hilarious.
And Vince has an
Vince
awesome.
Is the first. He introduces it too.
Of course, anybody who watches any WWE programming throughout the last forever knows Vince has very, very, very
sophomoric.
Yes, and he's
sophomoric.
He really likes his toilet humor.
Yeah, that's right.
The Natalia farting song from all those years ago, but yeah, Vince is one of the very first ones to do a very interesting depiction of
describing how he farts and stuff. It was like a rumble.
And it was everybody in the documentary: Hogan, Mean Gene.
Yeah, Mean Gene. When he took a fart. Mean Gene was great.
And we're not over exaggerating this either. It is that funny.
No, they went on for a while about his farts. That was funny. It was skin flapping together. It's what the hell is going on here? It was funny. No, I'm sure that's true. I mean, because Andre, they never. I don't think they ever. I read an article that said they never even figured out exactly how tall he was, because they build him 7'4", 7'5", but there's rumors that he was really only 6'9", 6'10". I think he was probably just 7 foot.
Yeah, no, definitely, and especially in wrestling and actually any other sport, they try to really beef things up.
Oh yeah,
it's always build height versus real height.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hogan was legit 6'8", 6'7", back then. And Hogan was a head shorter than Andre. So I think he was at least around 7 foot.
Yeah, definitely. But the big problems came with his weight and with the organs that would not grow.
Well, that's the giantism, or I can't remember what
the official term is. I was going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah, I would just call it giantism because that's what it was. And I heard rumors about this before. Well, not rumors, but just stories about how he didn't want it treated, which is an interesting thing because you see a guy like him, and he had all these problems with his back and his knees, and they said, his weight was really taking over his joints and completely destroying his body. And he didn't want to get that taken care of because he thought it would affect his wrestling career.
Yes, and and especially with it was knees, spinal cord, and neck. Yeah, which is, when you're wrestling, right, everything.
Yeah, and they said that his just all the features on his face, his forehead would grow too large, and you could see that on him. That's just what he looked like.
Yeah, all his features became disformed.
Yeah, and his hands are so wide and insane.
Yeah, and you've seen the previews, I'm sure, for the documentary where he puts his hand over Mean Gene's face, puts his hands around the throat of Bob Uecker, stuff like that. It's
that was fantastic. But yeah, just like talking about his size and talking about his background, and they even went into like when he started growing. So I guess he didn't really this didn't really take hold until he was like 15.
Yeah, 15 years old, they said.
Which is interesting because like a lot of the time with giantism, like they grow sooner than that. Like they start growing at like
it's pretty much right away.
8 to 10 or something is when they start really blowing up. But like Andre was in his mid-teens or whatever before that happened, that's kind of weird. So I don't know if they're like a tumor developed, and then because I think that's what happened to Great Khali, right? Like there was a tumor pressing against his hormone or something that was causing what was happening. He got that taken care of. But he also has those kind of features too,
Yeah, and it's great. One of the things that stood out to me really was it's crazy to see now how protective WWE is of their talent and stuff like that. Back then, obviously, you could see it's not the same case, and it really really shows in perspective how things have turned nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's so many more eyes on them, and especially with all this concussion stuff, and I'm still surprised to let Daniel Bryan wrestle again. I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. But surprised nonetheless, for sure. I mean, Paige just had to retire from her neck injuries and stuff. We've seen a lot of guys have to retire early, and girls. So, yeah, they definitely take care of their talent a lot more now. And you see, like, Vince talks about that Andre kind of resented him later. He felt kind of used, he said. He was trying to describe how Andre felt. That he was going to keep going without him and everything. But, I mean, like, what can you do at that point?
Yeah, there's nothing, especially because it seems like Vince wanted him to get the surgeries done.
Yeah, and so I was kind of unclear on that. So, like, they said that he wanted to get to Hogan at WrestleMania 3 because that, like, match intrigued him. It's the biggest match of all time still. I mean...
Well, yes, and he had the operation on the back beforehand.
Did he get the operation on the back?
He had an operation done on his back. Okay. But I don't think he got everything.
But he still couldn't move.
Yeah, I don't think it was going to be able to fix everything.
Right.
Just enough to get him through WrestleMania 3 because he doesn't technically retire until 1992, a year before he dies.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, like, they'd go into a big... There's a long segment on Hulk Hogan in this. I mean... almost unnecessarily long.
It's Hogan.
I know, but they take out like a huge chunk.
They do.
Everyone, for the most part, still knows who Hulk Hogan is. You could have spent like 5 minutes on that, but maybe they did, but it just felt like so long.
It took a long
without
time.
Even mentioning Andre, just building up who Hogan was and stuff. But I mean, it was like a mini documentary within the documentary. I don't think we needed that. Honestly.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe for outsiders who don't really know who Hogan is, he's still kind of a household name.
And it's still not technically. I mean, I don't think it was WWE's call, obviously, because
no, I know. I mean, it said it was in association with WWE, but I think that was just for the interviews that they gave him and all the footage that they let them use and stuff. But yeah, like, so they go through this big, long Hulk Hogan build-up and stuff, and talking about him in Rocky 3. They show long clips from Rocky 3 and just building up how he came through the ranks and his friendship with Andre. Now that stuff I was interested in.
Yes, definitely.
Like hearing like how close those two were at certain points and how he hated Randy Savage, which is funny.
It's funny, yeah.
It's funny too because I just read the JR's book and there's a really funny story in there. I talk about it in my review where like Randy Savage like choking JR up against the wall and stuff. And like how crazy he was, so it's interesting to hear like someone was like kind of like that to him too. So and there's also a bunch of stories about how Andre was going after Ultimate Warrior in their early matches. Like he would stiff him like all the time. So and they talk about that in the documentary. Like if he didn't want to put you over, you weren't going over.
No, definitely.
And he could like stiff you or do whatever he wanted to you out there. So if he didn't like you, that would kind of show, and they talked about that a lot.
Yeah, it also seemed like Andre and me, especially as being a former pro wrestler, going back to it very soon, thank God. It seemed that Andre really wasn't into calling matches too much beforehand.
No.
And you find that out with the WrestleMania 3 board.
Yeah, so I know a lot about WrestleMania 3. I mean, it's like one of the biggest WrestleManias ever. I mean, they still at least claim like the highest attendance. Well, I guess not now with the Detroit. I think they broke it.
No, I think it was Dallas, right?
Oh, whatever. They're lying anyway. But like the 93,000 fan thing, like Andre versus Hogan, like even like when I first got into wrestling, that was the thing. Like, oh, this is the mythical. That's where everything happened. That's where everything kind of started. And like hearing like more about it, stuff I didn't know, like Hogan, being like super nervous. I'd heard he was nervous, like kind of Andre wouldn't put him over, but I thought it was just kind of joking. But like getting all these like interviews with Vince and Tim White and stuff, and like no, like Hogan was freaking out like the entire time. And just Hogan wrote out the entire match on like this legal pad, and they show the legal pad. I'm not sure if that's like the real thing or not, but it looked kind of like it was.
If it was, it's definitely one of those really, really cool artifacts you
Yeah.
hope to see like in some type of box one day.
Right, yeah.
Because it's insanely cool.
Yeah, I never heard like Hogan wrote out the whole match before. That was very interesting.
They go through it step by step, and Andre does everything that's on the legal
Yeah.
pad, and that's when it seemed like Hulk knew that he was actually going to go over in that match.
Right. So that part of it was great. That's kind of like the peak of him, even though his health was obviously way going down at that point. But the peak of his most well-known part of his career, even though he was huge before that. But I think like since they make a big deal about national TV and the advent of cable television in this, and this was like the peak of all that stuff. I think in '87 was WrestleMania 3. So then right after that, I mean, he did stick around a little bit. I mean, like he did work with Hogan more. He won the title kind of. But then he had to give it back, and I think they used to sell like the giant version.
Oh man,
right,
the one
of
that was
Winged
like
Eagle.
4'8" tall. Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing was huge.
Yeah, did he even ever come out with it? I don't think he did.
No, didn't Ted DiBiase get it or something weird
Yeah,
like that?
no, like cause he beat Hogan and he was gonna like give it to Ted DiBiase, but
That's
then
what it
they
was,
wouldn't
yeah.
let him do it. But why did they build the belt then? It's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, like I think after WrestleMania 3, everything just starts kind of tumbling down and and it ends on a really sad note. I mean, just like we talked about with Tim White, like talking about his death, and with Vince and Hogan and stuff. I mean, like people really liked him. He was like they all talked about how he was the leader. He was the locker room leader,
The boss.
The boss. I mean, and he was like everyone like knew who he was walking around. I mean, like the old adage of walking around an airport. I mean, that makes if you can get noticed walking through an airport that recognizable on a WWE television or just pro wrestling in general. I mean, you couldn't miss Andre the Giant. And it was sad just to hear about how he felt bad about, being recognized and sort of being ridiculed, and like fans wouldn't leave him alone. And it sucks to hear about that stuff, man. But what are you gonna do? I mean, like, if you saw a guy walking by who's 7 foot, it was as big as he is, like a legit giant. It's like, whoa. Yeah, and just hearing about how he was uncomfortable all the time, and couldn't sit in planes, and the bathroom, he couldn't use the bathroom on the plane, and they had to like bring a curtain like in front of him, and he would do his business, and they would dump the stuff in the toilet. Like, geez, man, that is rough. And they had a pretty decently big size segment on The Princess Bride, which is a very popular movie and he was in that one as a giant. I can't remember the name of his character, but yeah, like the stars from that movie are talking about it, and that was cool to hear like their perspective on things and how he was on a film set and how much he drank. I mean, that's a huge.
I mean, everyone knows about
right.
that, but I mean, even I was wowed about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these pictures of him holding cans, and they're like this big in his hand. It's great. It's like like the mini size cans in our hand. That's what like a regular size can was in his hand. But yeah, all those stories about him drinking and eventually you learn like he was drinking because he was in so much pain. He would start at like 9 a.m. and drink like bottles and bottles and bottles of wine.
6 bottles of wine, 3 bottles of cognac.
Jeez.
Somebody said he drank 108 beers.
That was Ric Flair.
Was it Ric Flair?
Yeah, he was like, we drink 106 beers. Woo! I love Ric Flair. But I like how he's wearing, like him and Hogan were wearing their own shirts. It's kind of funny.
Come on.
I know.
Self-promotion.
I know.
It's all
Hogan,
about self-promotion.
I know. Hogan had a big part in the interviews for this, and obviously right now he's kind of still persona non grata with WWE and stuff. I mean, they're talking in negotiations with him. I think WWE has confirmed that, but he's still not welcomed back for all the things that he did a few months ago or a year ago or whatever. So that they let him talk about this stuff, and he comes off pretty well, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, no, definitely he does. Which I think is Hogan trying to will his ways. I know, but I mean, yeah, he's definitely changed his tune a little bit.
Yeah, and the Ric Flair 30 for 30, he was almost over the top with like his Ric Flair love and that. And I'm like, you don't think that, Hogan? He was like Ric Flair was 10 times worse than I was, brother. I'm like, I don't know, Hogan. I don't know if you really think that. But this, he came off pretty genuine. I think his perspective was important for this because of the WrestleMania 3 match and sort of Andre passing the torch to him at that show.
Even before this documentary, I always felt that Hogan had the most respect for him because he did help take Hogan to that next level, and he does say that it was the proverbial passing of the torch.
Yeah, and they all talk about that. That was a big deal. So, It would have been crazy to be around back then. They have interviews with like wrestling writers and stuff, and talking about what it was like when they were kids watching it, and they're talking about it like it was a sports event or something. And obviously kayfabe it was, but to kids, I mean, it's like they're talking about like comparing boxing, like Foreman and like Ali or whatever, and Frazier or whatever. So like, it was just interesting to hear all these different angles on the man and the matches and what he did and stuff, and it was pretty cool. Even the King had a few good like interview segments in there.
Yeah,
because he wrestled him in Memphis and stuff. Andre, I guess, traveled so much.
Yeah, well, especially in the 70s and 80s, the territories were such a big thing. They do go into decent depth about that beforehand, before obviously the big WrestleMania boom and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, so there's he was like the main attraction, like all these territories, obviously.
Yeah, he would jump around each and every day because they didn't want to overutilize him in one spot.
Smart.
Like similar to like kind of modern day Brock Lesnar, not to the same extent, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I mean,
no overexposure.
Right, he's like a commodity, and you want to use him sparingly, because if you use him too much, then you kind of got like a Big Show situation almost, where like, I mean, like everyone was wowed by the Big Show on like WCW and stuff, and he could do all this crazy athletic stuff. But when you see him every week, when you see anything every week, it kind of loses that luster. So they sparingly used him up until when he was in WWF and stuff. Yeah, I think that just about covers it, man. It's just a very sad documentary, but it's still very informative and gives really good perspectives from different people, and really gets under his skin and stuff, and like what he was thinking, and like personal conversations, and like home videos of him and stuff on his ranch. And like they interviewed his daughter, which was very important, I think, because I don't think I've ever seen an interview with her before. And he wasn't very involved in her life too. That was a big deal. He didn't want her around the wrestling business. And at that point, that's probably a smart idea.
Definitely around the times he was around with all the drugs, alcohol, that stuff going on back then. Yeah, definitely.
Right. So it's interesting to see her. I mean, I kind of wish we got a little bit more from her, but I get the feeling that that's kind of all she had, because he wasn't really around that much.
Yeah, they do try to like right the ship at the end, because I guess he left his estate, everything, to just her.
Yeah, right.
So they do try to kind of bring a little happiness back to it.
Right. Who's like her mom?
We have. I don't.
Do they never? They found out.
I mean, people probably know, but just not public knowledge.
Sure, I guess so. I'm sure someone's got to know. Yeah. But yeah, I think final thoughts on this. It's something you should go out of your way to see. It's definitely. I mean, it's not a super long. It's less than 90 minutes. It's like 84 minutes. I think you'll definitely enjoy it if you're a wrestling fan, even if you're just curious about Andre the Giant. Like if you've heard stuff about him. If you're sort of looking at an outsider looking in at the wrestling business or whatever, I think you'll enjoy it, because it's a really well-made documentary.
Yeah, definitely, and it's somebody that was really like truly different, like truly like a mythological creature.
Yeah, and they talk about that a lot.
Person. Yeah, right. I mean, it's truly different, and it's something you definitely need to see, especially if you love the business. I definitely recommend it 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's on HBO. I mean, you could get like a free trial or something for a month and just watch it. Honestly, like everyone does with the WWE Network anyway. So look that up. But yeah, I think it's absolutely worth going out of your way to see. It's a really honest take. It doesn't even portray him as like a super good guy. I mean, sometimes he can get angry, and some like they really peel back the layers.
Keep it real, even keel.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't portray him as like a saint, but he is this sympathetic figure. I mean, if you're that big, I mean, they talk about it like in the documentary, like you're walking around your whole life sitting in like children's furniture and stuff. Yeah. It's a tough life, but he made the most out of it, man. I mean, pretty much everybody to this day still like recognizes the name, at least, Andre the Giant. When you think of Giant, you think of Andre.
Yeah, definitely.
And now Matt Hardy is his biggest fan since he won, the
he
Giant Battle Royal. Yeah, he's talking to him. Maybe we'll get some him talking to like the
wonderful.
I love that on Raw.
I do love that.
I loved it. Love Matt Hardy, man. I love the Wyatt stuff. But yeah, it was really good, guys. I think you should go out of your way to see it. Any other final thoughts? Or?
The only thing I really think is the irony is that everyone's always around him his whole life, and then he dies alone. It's extremely sad, like I said. One word, sad.
Very sad, but I mean, still something I think you should check out, even if you're just curious. I think you'll enjoy it. It's an HBO documentary, and HBO makes great documentaries, so check it out. So people have been asking about maybe doing like some like monthly pay-per-view reviews and stuff. I mean, I would my goal is to get at least one wrestling video out a month, whether that's a pay-per-view review or like a top 5 or top 10 list or something. I was thinking about maybe doing a year retrospective. The first year, I think we should maybe do 2002.
And I just rewatched the first 4 months of 2002.
Maybe we'll do like the pay-per-views from 2002 or something.
Yeah.
And talk about it. I can't use the footage because WWE's nuts, but maybe I could use some pictures or something.
Still frames or something.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. But there's definitely more wrestling stuff coming up. Like I said, at least one video a month. I would like to keep some wrestling stuff. But there's more subjects I want to cover on the channel too. But wrestling is something I want to get back to.
Any suggestions for wrestling videos, guys? You can.
Yeah, I've been asking you.
Yeah,
the last few. So if you have any ideas, let us know as well. But until next time, maybe Backlash or before that. I really like the 2002 year retrospective, like going to the pay-per-views.
Yeah,
we'll do that.
That's not a bad idea at all.
But until then, we'll talk to you later. Al, you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, at Labanca, LABANCA 3224.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
that is it. I had to think about it,
Yeah, right. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care, guys.